They broke the door down before I could take requests.
Was it worth it? 2 weeks in the hole?
Easiest time I ever.
Back then, a quiet prison movie about hope, friendship, and a man with a tiny rock hammer became one of the most loved movies ever made. Yes, that movie was The Shawshank Redemption. Released in 1994, the story followed Andy Dufresne, played by Tim Robbins, a banker who was wrongly convicted of murder and spent many years inside Shawshank Prison, quietly planning the most patient escape in movie history. Along the way, he became friends with Red, played by Morgan Freeman. The movie is legendary, and the behind-the-scenes stories are just as crazy. So today, we are counting down 15 facts you probably didn't know about this classic movie. Now, before we jump in, go ahead and like, subscribe, and support this video if you enjoy nostalgic deep dives like this one. It helps us bring you more retro movie content every week. Oh, and stay until number 15, because what Tim Robbins did to prepare for this role is truly wild. Alright, let's get into it with number 1. Rob Reiner tried to buy the script for $2.5 million. Before The Shawshank Redemption ever started filming, it almost became a very different movie, one starring Tom Cruise and Harrison Ford. After Frank Darabont wrote the screenplay, he brought it to Castle Rock Entertainment, which was co-founded by Rob Reiner, the same guy who had already turned the Stephen King novella The Body into the box office hit Stand By Me. Reiner read the script and immediately knew he wanted to make it, so he made Darabont an offer, $2.5 million for the rights, and Reiner would direct it himself. He even had big stars ready, with Tom Cruise as Andy Dufresne and Harrison Ford as Red. Reiner saw it as a guaranteed blockbuster, with two of the biggest names in Hollywood. For Darabont, a man who grew up poor and wrote the script in just 8 weeks, this was life-changing money, the kind of deal most screenwriters only dream about, but he said no. Why? Because he wanted to direct the movie himself, even if it meant taking a much smaller amount, $750,000, and a small share of future profits. He didn't want to give his dream project to someone else. As Darabont later explained, you can keep putting off your dreams for money and end up dying without ever doing the thing you truly wanted to do. That's heavy stuff, but it turned out to be the right choice. To Reiner's credit, he didn't get upset. Instead, he mentored Darabont through the entire process, helping a first-time director become someone capable of making one of the best films ever made. In the end, the risk paid off. Darabont's vision gave Shawshank its deep emotions, and the casting of Tim Robbins and Morgan Freeman became truly iconic.
I've been thinking of getting a board together.
Well, hey, you're talking to the right man. I'm the guy that can get things, right?
The movie earned 7 Oscar nominations and lasted longer than every guaranteed Hollywood hit released that year. Meanwhile, Tom Cruise and Harrison Ford both ended up with great careers, but just imagine watching Shawshank with Maverick crawling through a sewer pipe. Yeah, Darabont definitely made the right call. Number 2. The sewage was chocolate syrup and sawdust. Andy Dufresne's crawl to freedom, those 500 yards through a sewer pipe, is one of the most iconic and gross scenes in movie history. But the sewage that Tim Robbins was crawling through was actually not disgusting at all. The crew filled the pipe with chocolate syrup, sawdust, and water, creating a thick homemade slime that looked like a terrible plumbing disaster, but smelled like a Hershey's chocolate factory. Even today, visitors at the Ohio State Reformatory say the old pipe still has a light chocolate smell. Freedom never smelled so sweet. But this is where things actually got gross. That famous moment when Andy bursts out into the rain, the water he landed in was real and full of farm runoff, which means cow poop. A chemist tested the water and said it was extremely dangerous, so the crew cleaned and sterilized it before filming, just to be safe. And according to Tim Robbins, if Andy had crawled through a real sewer, methane gas would have killed him within minutes. So that brave escape scene is pure movie magic, held together by chocolate syrup and a lot of trust in set safety. Robbins spent hours crawling through fake sewage and dirty river water to get the scene right. Later, writer and director Frank Darabont called him a trooper, which honestly feels like an understatement. He earned every bit of that praise, and probably a tetanus shot too. Number 3. Stephen King framed his uncashed check. When Frank Darabont bought the film rights to Rita Hayworth and Shawshank Redemption back in 1987, Stephen King charged him $5,000. For comparison, that's about what many people spend on a used Honda Civic. Not exactly big Hollywood money, but here's where the story gets good. King never cashed the check. Years later, after Shawshank became one of the most loved films of all time, King framed the uncashed check and mailed it back to Darabont with a handwritten note that said, "In case you ever need bail money, love, Steve." Absolute legend. It turns out this wasn't just a random act of kindness. Darabont had been one of the young filmmakers King supported through his Dollar Baby program, where he sold the adaptation rights to his short stories for just $1. Darabont's early work impressed King so much that when it was time to adapt Shawshank, King sold him the rights for almost nothing and basically said, "Go make something great, kid." And when Darabont delivered a masterpiece, King responded by never cashing the check. It was his way of saying, "I don't need the money. I just wanted to see what you would do with it." The bail money joke was just the cherry on top. Classic Stephen King, equal parts generous, funny, and a little unhinged. Number 4. Morgan Freeman's son appears twice. Morgan Freeman's voice could read a grocery list and still make it sound deep and meaningful. But in The Shawshank Redemption, he wasn't the only Freeman to appear on screen. His real-life son, Alfonso, showed up twice in the movie, and there's a good chance you never noticed either time. First, he appears in the parole hearing mugshots that show Red aging over the years.
So you go on and stamp your form, Sonny, and stop wasting my time. Because to tell you the truth, I don't give a shit.
Plot twist, the early photo wasn't Morgan at all. It was Alfonso standing in as young Red. The resemblance was so strong that the swap was basically perfect. Unless you're pausing every frame and playing detective, you wouldn't notice it. But there's more. Alfonso also appeared as one of the inmates during the famous fresh fish scene. You know, when the prisoners rolled in and everyone was betting on who would crack first. He was the guy shouting, fresh fish today, we're reeling them in," while doing the whole pretend fishing rod move. It was an uncredited cameo that turned into one of the most memorable background moments in the whole film. Not bad for a day's work. Funny enough, this wasn't just a one-time family cameo either. Alfonso appeared in more of his dad's movies, Seven as a fingerprint tech, and The Bucket List as a surprise organ donor. So next time you watch Shawshank for the 100th time, keep your eyes open. While Red was serving his time, his real-life son was hiding in plain sight the whole movie. Number 5. Morgan Freeman's arm was in a sling after 9 hours of filming. That casual game of catch in the prison yard, the one that looked like two friends just tossing a ball around? Yeah, Morgan Freeman threw that baseball for 9 straight hours. Frank Darabont wanted the scene to feel natural and personal, so he filmed it from every angle. Wide shots, close-ups, over the shoulder, you name it. For nearly a full workday, Freeman stood there throwing and catching the ball over and over while staying in Red's calm, thoughtful character. No stand-ins, no breaks, just Morgan Freeman quietly enduring what was basically the world's longest game of catch. And here's the kicker, he smiled the entire time. He never complained, never asked to stop. Classic Freeman, total professional, zero drama. But the next morning, he came to set with his arm in a sling. That's when everyone realized how much damage 9 hours of non-stop baseball can do to a human shoulder. Did Freeman mention it during filming? Nope, he just powered through because he didn't want to slow down production or ruin the flow of the scene. The crew was amazed. Tim Robbins later said that day told you everything you needed to know about Morgan. He lives inside the moment, no matter what it takes. So yeah, in a movie about endurance and quiet strength, Freeman didn't just play the part, he actually lived it, shoulder injury and all. Number 6. Brad Pitt almost played Tommy. Brad Pitt almost did time in Shawshank. Not for real, of course, but he was originally cast as Tommy Williams, the young inmate whose testimony could have freed Andy Dufresne.
Just thinking maybe trying for my high school equivalency here, you helped a couple fellows with that.
This was early 90s Pitt, just after his shirtless breakout in Thelma and Louise and quickly rising toward leading man status. Frank Darabont thought he'd be perfect for Tommy, a small but important role that needed charm, a little edge, and just enough innocence to make the character's fate hit hard. But then, Pitt got an offer he couldn't refuse, starring opposite Tom Cruise in Interview with the Vampire. And honestly, playing a tortured vampire in fancy period costumes with one of the biggest stars in the world was an easy choice compared to playing a prison inmate in an indie drama that nobody expected to be a hit. So Pitt traded prison blues for Victorian lace, and Shawshank went to Plan B. Gil Bellows, a relative unknown, brought exactly the right energy to Tommy.
Said he pulled hundreds of jobs. Hard to believe how strung as he was. He'd cut a loud fart. He'd jump 3 feet in the air.
Sweet, sincere, and grounded. Darabont later admitted that Pitt's rising fame might actually have been a distraction. Audiences would have been too busy thinking, hey, that's Brad Pitt, instead of focusing on Tommy's story. And for what it's worth, Pitt had no regrets. He later said in interviews that he believed things work out the way they're meant to. He got a blockbuster, Bellows got a breakout role, and Shawshank got the cast it needed. Number 7. The rock hammer was hidden in the book of Exodus. When the warden finally discovered Andy's escape, he got hit with the most perfect bit of irony in the whole movie. That hollowed-out Bible he had given Andy as a gift, it was open to the book of Exodus, the biblical story about slaves escaping to freedom. It's as subtle as a brick through a window and absolutely perfect. Remember earlier when the warden smugly told Andy,
"Salvation lies within"?
He was talking about spiritual salvation, trying to sound all righteous while running the most corrupt prison in Maine. But Andy took it literally. His salvation really did lie within, specifically inside the pages of Exodus, hollowed out to hide the rock hammer that let him chip his way to freedom. So the Bible the warden handed him as part of his holier-than-thou act became the very tool that helped Andy escape. But Andy didn't stop there. He had also been quietly keeping records of every corrupt deal the warden made. After his escape, Andy sent that incriminating ledger to the newspaper, exposing the whole operation and bringing it crashing down. The symbolism was almost too perfect. A corrupt warden who used religion as a weapon was undone by the very Bible he gave as a gift, while his crimes were exposed by the innocent man he tried to control. Chef's kiss. Number 8. The opera scene has a secret meaning. Andy locking himself in the warden's office and blasting opera over the prison loudspeakers is one of the most iconic moments in Shawshank. It's beautiful, it's defiant, and it's also way smarter than most people notice. The piece he played was called, trying my best here, Canzonetta Solaria from Mozart's The Marriage of Figaro, a duet where two women plan to expose a cheating husband. The Countess and her maid Susanna write a fake love letter to trap the Count in his own infidelity. So basically the song is about revealing betrayal. Now here's the clever part. Andy was in prison because of his wife's affair. He was paying for a crime of passion he didn't commit, framed by her betrayal. So when he played this duet about exposing a cheater, that wasn't for anyone else. It was Andy taking back control of the story that ruined his life. But the real power move, he reminded everyone in Shawshank that they were still human. The prison system was built to strip that away, to turn men into numbers, routines, and obedience.
And for the briefest of moments, every last man at Shawshank felt free.
By blasting Mozart across the yard, Andy wasn't just sharing music, he was making a statement of resistance. He was reminding everyone that life is more than gray walls and counting days. And here's the thing, none of the prisoners even understood the song. They didn't speak Italian, and it didn't matter. As Red said, I have no idea to this day what those two Italian ladies were singing about. I'd like to think they were singing about something so beautiful it can't be expressed with words. For those few moments, everyone in Shawshank felt free. The guards stopped moving, the inmates looked up, and those stone walls might as well not have existed. The men behind bars experienced more freedom in that moment than the warden ever could, because while they were physically locked up, he was trapped by his own corruption and greed. Turns out there's more than one kind of prison. Of course, Andy paid for it, 2 weeks in solitary, but he didn't care, because that was the whole point of the scene. Hope and beauty can survive anywhere, even in a place designed to crush both, even when it costs you everything. Now, let's take a quick pause.
If you're loving the Shawshank stories, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the movies and TV shows that shaped a generation. And tell us in the comments, how did you first watch Shawshank? In theaters, on VHS, DVD, or one of those endless TNT reruns like me?
Now let's get back to the countdown with number 9. Red was originally a red-haired Irishman. In Stephen King's original novella, Ellis Red Redding was exactly what his name suggested, a white, middle-aged Irishman with graying red hair. So when The Shawshank Redemption hit theaters with Morgan Freeman in the role, it was a big change from the source material, and also one of the best casting decisions ever. The idea came from producer Liz Glotzer, who thought Freeman's voice and presence were perfect for Red. Frank Darabont agreed, and went with what he called a colorblind casting approach, focusing on who fit the character, not who matched the description. Freeman, though, wasn't immediately convinced. He told Yahoo Entertainment that when he first read the novella, he got halfway through, saw Red was Irish, and thought, I can't play an Irishman. But the script was too good to pass up, so he eventually came around. Good call, Morgan. The movie even nods to the change. When Andy asks Red why he's called that, Freeman delivers one of the film's best throwaway lines.
Maybe it's because I'm Irish.
It's a perfect little nod to fans of the book, and it works every time. Casting Freeman also added something the novella didn't have, a black man navigating a 1940s prison system, which brought its own unspoken weight. The movie didn't make a big deal out of it, but it was there, adding another layer to a story already about dignity, survival, and the abuse of power. And honestly, Freeman's performance became so iconic that it's impossible to imagine anyone else as Red, Irish or not. That voice, that presence, that delivery, he was Red. End of discussion. Number 10. It flopped at the box office, but then became a hit. It's hard to believe now, but when The Shawshank Redemption hit theaters in 1994, it was far from a success. With a $25 million budget, it earned barely $16 million back, a certified box office flop. So what went wrong? Start with the title. Frank Darabont had dropped Rita Hayworth from King's novella to avoid confusion, but that only made things worse. Hollywood execs thought it was a biopic about the actress, and Darabont even got casting requests from supermodels wanting to play the non-existent lead. For general audiences, the name Shawshank meant nothing, or worse, sounded made up. Tim Robbins later joked that fans came up to him saying things like, "I loved that Scrimshaw Reduction movie." Not exactly the word of mouth you want. Then there was the competition. Shawshank went head-to-head with Forrest Gump, Pulp Fiction, and The Lion King, all three cultural juggernauts. Add in an all-male cast in a grim prison setting, and the film just didn't look like date night material. But then the movie pulled off its own redemption arc. When Shawshank hit home video, it exploded, becoming the most rented VHS tape of 1995, with over 320,000 copies shipped to stores. Then TNT started airing it constantly, turning the once-forgotten drama into a comfort classic for millions. Before long, the movie no one could pronounce became the one everyone could quote, and it's held the #1 spot on IMDb's Top 250 for years. So yeah, The Shawshank Redemption may have bombed in theaters, but like Andy Dufresne himself, it crawled through a river of failure and came out clean on the other side. Number 11. The iconic oak tree was in Ohio, not Maine. In the movie, Andy tells Red to find a certain oak tree, like something out of a Robert Frost poem. It's one of the most emotional moments in the film, as Red discovers Andy's letter hidden under that very tree, and finally understands what hope really means.
Remember, Red, hope is a good thing, maybe the best of things.
But here's the twist. That tree wasn't in Maine at all. It was a real white oak in Mansfield, Ohio, standing in a hayfield near Malabar Farm State Park, just a few miles from the old Ohio State Reformatory where the movie was filmed. After Shawshank became a cult favorite, the tree itself turned into a tourist landmark. Thousands of fans visited each year, following the Shawshank Trail to see the spot where Andy's message of hope was found. Unfortunately, time and weather took their toll. In 2011, the tree was struck by lightning and split down the middle. The damage weakened it so much that a windstorm in 2016 brought down the rest of it. By 2017, what remained had to be completely removed. But just like the film it came from, the story has its own redemption.
Local craftspeople used the fallen wood to create keepsakes, rock hammers, magnets, even furniture, all made from pieces of the legendary oak. The site where it once stood still draws visitors from around the world, marked by a plaque that feels like a tribute to the movie's message itself. The tree may be gone, but its legacy lives on, a quiet symbol of hope, survival, and the idea that even in loss, something beautiful can endure. Number 12. Real guards warned the crew about screams. The Shawshank Redemption wasn't filmed on a Hollywood backlot. It was shot in a real, abandoned prison with a seriously dark history. The Ohio State Reformatory in Mansfield, Ohio, had been closed just a few years earlier, but its eerie reputation stuck around. Built in the late 1800s, the reformatory had over a century of overcrowding, violence, and more than 200 deaths, including inmates and guards. By the early 90s, locals were already calling it one of the most haunted places in America. To keep the movie authentic, Frank Darabont hired several former guards as consultants. They didn't just share prison stories, they gave warnings. After dark, they said it wasn't unusual to hear disembodied screams, footsteps in empty hallways, and doors slamming shut with no one around. At first, the crew brushed it off. Then, actor Mark Rolston, who played Boggs, decided to test the theory and spent the night there. Allegedly, he didn't make it until morning. Strange noises and cold drafts convinced him the legends might not be just folklore. Still, the creepy atmosphere worked. The prison's gothic, imposing architecture was exactly what Darabont needed to bring Shawshank to life. Today, the Ohio State Reformatory has fully embraced its haunted reputation. It's now a tourist destination and ghost hunting hotspot, offering Shawshank tours by day and paranormal investigations by night. So, if you ever visit and hear a scream echoing through the halls, well, the guards did warn you. Number 13. Some extras were real ex-cons. One reason the Shawshank Redemption feels so real is because in a few scenes it actually was. When production began in Mansfield, Ohio, the filmmakers needed dozens of background actors to fill the prison yard in Shawshank.
My witness, he can just blink for a second, and then he laughed himself silly, and afterwards he actually shook Andy's hand.
But there wasn't exactly a big pool of professional extras in town, so the filmmakers did the next best thing. They recruited people from a local halfway house, bringing in former inmates to play prisoners on screen. It was a brilliant move. These men knew how to walk, talk, and carry themselves like people who had really done time.
And how you feel? I'm up for rejection next week.
Yeah, I got rejected last week.
Their natural body language gave the film's crowd scenes a gritty authenticity that professional extras couldn't fake. Cast and crew said their presence changed the energy on set. Even Morgan Freeman and Tim Robbins felt it. That subtle edge and realism made every yard scene feel genuinely alive. So yeah, a movie about life in prison actually hired people who had done time. Turns out the best way to make prison look real is to cast people who knew exactly what it looked like. Number 14. The beach reunion almost didn't happen. That final shot of Red and Andy reuniting on the beach in Zihuatanejo is one of the most satisfying endings ever put on film. But it almost didn't exist. In Stephen King's original novella, the story ended on a bus. Red found Andy's letter, boarded a bus heading south, and that was it. No beach reunion.
I hope I can make it across the border. I hope to see my friend and shake his hand.
No reunion, no beach, just hope and a lot of uncertainty. Pretty bold for a prison story, but very Stephen King. When Frank Darabont wrote the screenplay, he planned to keep that ambiguous ending. The studio, however, wasn't thrilled. Producer Liz Glotzer basically told him, after over 2 hours of hell, you might owe people that reunion. Castle Rock agreed to finance the beach scene, but left the final decision up to Darabont. So he did what any smart director would do. He filmed it both ways. One ending stayed true to King's fade to black ambiguity. The other showed Red finally finding Andy on that beach. Test audiences went crazy for the reunion, and Darabont realized Glotzer was right. Sometimes you have to give the people what they want. But here's the clever part. Even after deciding to show the reunion, Darabont kept it wordless. He cut out all dialogue, later describing it as, "Golly gee, ain't we cute?" to avoid making the moment too sappy. Smart move. The scene works because it doesn't oversell itself. Just two friends, a beach, and the payoff we'd been waiting for. So yeah, technically the studio interfered, but in this case they were absolutely right. As much as we love ambiguous art house endings, we really wanted to see Red and Andy together on that beach. Number 15. Tim Robbins asked to be locked in solitary. To play Andy Dufresne, a man wrongfully imprisoned for decades, Tim Robbins wanted to understand what isolation actually felt like. So before filming started, he asked prison officials to lock him in solitary confinement. They weren't going to let a Hollywood actor play prisoner for days, but they did give him some time alone in one of the empty cells. No contact, no sound, no light, just Robbins and four walls. Afterwards, he said it gave him, quote, a sense of what the isolation is and what the loneliness of it is. But let's be clear, he knew that spending a few voluntary hours in a cell he could leave any time was not the same as years of real imprisonment with no escape. Still, that glimpse mattered. You can see it in his performance, the quiet patience, the internal resolve, the way he plays Andy as someone genuinely enduring captivity, not just a hero waiting for his moment. Method acting can get ridiculous when actors take it too far, looking at you, Jared Leto, but in this case, Robbins used it thoughtfully to add real weight to the role. He didn't pretend he'd experienced prison, he just tried to tap into a fraction of what it might feel like, and it worked. His performance became one of the most authentic portrayals of incarceration in film history, even if his prep was a Hollywood version of the real thing. And there you have it, 15 weird and wonderful facts about the Shawshank Redemption. If you liked this video, be sure to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.